Yeah. Good. Good morning, everybody, on this Monday morning. We had some struggles this morning to get here, and we also had some struggles to kick off our technology, but we are very happy to see a number of people in the room here. And also, please mute your microphones if you join this meeting online. We have at this moment 15, 20 people in the room, and we have more than 80 people online. So with that, I would like to open the workshop on enhancing domestic life safety. It's a great pleasure from my side to welcome you all to the European Fire Safety Week 2024. Whether you're joining here in person or connecting with us online, I'm delighted to see that this meeting gets so much attention. This week marks a significant opportunity for all of us, industry leaders, policymakers, experts, and advocates, to come together and address one of the most pressing issues in our communities: enhancing safety in our homes. Today's hybrid event, focusing on enhancing domestic life safety, is dedicated to exploring innovative solutions, best practices, and collaborative efforts to make every household a safer place to live. As we gather here, it's important to remember that fire safety is not just a technical issue, but it's a human one. It impacts families, neighborhoods, and entire communities. This is why our commitment to improve fire safety, the standards, the regulations, and most for all, the awareness is more crucial than ever. Together, we can drive change and make a meaningful impact on the lives of millions across Europe. In this session, we look especially at domestic fire safety related to vulnerable people. In today's world, more people live longer on their own, and also more vulnerable people want to live independently. I would like to extend a special thanks to our presenters, who also will take part in a panel discussion at the end of the presentations. Your contribution is invaluable, and I'm certain that your insights will inspire a constructive dialogue action throughout this week. For today, after the opening from Christoph Bishop, we will listen to a keynote speech from Billy Kellner, but I have to disappoint you. I think everybody knows that there is a lot ongoing in the Parliament. The Commission is not installed yet, and due to his workload in the last few weeks, he did not have the time to join us, and also he did not have. Please, can you mute if you are not? Thank you. Good. So we will miss him. After that, ANEC, the European Consumer Organization, will highlight the importance of creating awareness around domestic life safety. The human impact of domestic fires, particularly on vulnerable and elderly population, will be highlighted by Koen Martens from Oscare, an organization dedicated to burns, scare after, and research. And we will close the presentations to see how technology can play an important role in making our homes safer. This will be done by Torsten Tijgert, the chair of Euralarm's task group, Domestic Life Safety. Good. I would like to invite now Christoph Bishop, the chair of EFSA, the European Fire Safety Alliance, to officially open this webinar, but also open the European Fire Safety Week. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Paul. And thank you very much for a very good translation my last name into English. My name is Krzysztof Biskup. Biskup indeed means bishop in English. And, he's a good friend. So good morning, everybody here in this conference room, and good morning, everybody who joined us online. So I have a great pleasure to welcome all of you to the European Fire Safety Week 2024. This is already sixth time when European Fire Safety Alliance, together with its partners, organized this important European Fire Safety initiative. If someone asks me what the European Fire Safety Week is, I can answer quoting one member of the European Parliament who said, "It's time for reflection and time for action on fire safety improvement in Europe." So we made a lot of effort together to put fire safety higher in a political agenda, and I'm really very happy to see that this effort brings very concrete results. Since the last European Fire Safety Week, we managed to advance in a few important projects and initiatives aimed at improving fire safety at the EU level. Let me just highlight a few examples. First of all, the European Parliament has allocated budget for the next stage of the project aimed at harmonizing European fire statistics. Then we have Energy Performance of Building Directive. The adopted text of this directive has been enriched with important or significant fire safety provisions. European Commission has been working on the guidance on fire safety for battery electric vehicles in roofed car parks. And based on the last year European Fire Safety Week conclusions, we developed the EU Fire Safety Manifesto 2024-2029. In this manifesto, we are calling on the EU to develop EU-wide fire safety strategy. And what is very important, this manifesto was the combined initiative of 25 different organizations working on fire safety improvement in Europe. So this year, together with our partners, we have prepared 10 events covering important and topical fire safety problems, which were defined in the European Fire Safety Action Plan. Let me remind you that the European Fire Safety Action Plan was developed as a follow-up of the first edition of the European Fire Safety Week, which was organized in 2019. And it is the first evidence and knowledge-based fire safety agenda for Europe. The leading topic this year is the fire safety of most vulnerable groups, which has been identified and proven by data and scientific research as one of the most important challenge we will have to face with in the EU in coming years. And this is really a critical time. And this is really a critical time to address this challenge, as due to rapidly aging demographics in EU, combined with growing energy poverty and substandard housing, the issue will get even bigger in a close future. So to move forward in fire safety improvement, we are going to debate these challenges with the key EU policy makers or decision makers during the high-level discussion on fire safety, which is going to take place on Thursday in the European Parliament. And I hope we will succeed in convincing decision makers to develop a European fire safety strategy. So, ladies and gentlemen, after this long introduction, let me officially announce the European Fire Safety Week 2024 open. And thank you very much for joining us here in this room and also online. I wish you a good and fruitful meeting, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Christoph, for those words and for the inspiring opening and for setting the stage for what's promising to be an impactful European Fire Safety Week for this year. Your dedication has been instrumental, and I also want to thank you to bring more than, I think in the meantime, we're 19 different associations, European associations, focused on fire safety together in this Fire Safety Week. And I think each year we see more people joining. And I'm a big believer that the bigger the message is, the more people we have to support our message, the better we will be heard. Good. Next, we're going to listen to Annek, who will talk about, which is the voice of the European consumers. And I think you will introduce yourself, so I'm not going to take that away from you. Thank you.
Oh, this. Right. Not aware of that. No.
Please come in.
Oh, we need
Ah,
to see.
You can turn this one.
Oh, you can.
Oh.
Oh. Is that okay? You can just press the down button. And
Okay.
please go ahead.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you the consumer perspective on the importance of raising awareness on domestic life safety. I'm Michela Guaric from Annex Secretariat, where I am lead program manager for sustainability and services areas, and I'm here with my colleague Tanya.
Yes, good morning. I'm Tanya van den Berge, also from the Annex Secretariat, and I'm responsible in Annex for child safety and safety of domestic appliances.
So to tell you a bit more about ANEC and what we do, we give you a bit of an overview of ANEC and our activities, but also specifically our activities on fire safety and CO safety. So we were established in 1995 as European Consumer Voice in Standardization. We are an independent, not-for-profit association based under a contract, under a Belgian law, but we are funded by the European institutions, Commission and EFTA. And our membership is open to consumer organizations in 34 countries. Tanya will tell you a bit more.
Yes, so actually our aim is to represent and defend the European consumer interest in a continuum of consumer protection and welfare, and we do this at 3 levels. So we follow European policies and laws that are related to standards, consumer protection. Sorry for the echo.
Yeah, some people are unmute themselves.
Then also standardization itself. So we participate in the governance and technical levels of SENS, ENELEC, ETSI, ISO, IEC, and United Nations Economic Commission of Europe. And the use of standards, of course, is also important because you can have the best laws and standards in the world, but if they are not used or enforced, they are not worth a lot, let's say. We have 7 areas of priority. You can see them on the slide. Fire safety, it's actually cutting across sectors, across the different sectors, let's say, that we tackle in ANEC.
Yes, I will tell you a bit more about our activities in the past years relating to fire safety. We were involved especially in the possible revision of the recommendation of hotel fire safety, as possibly many of you in the past years. And that's where we were asking for requirements at the European level on specific areas like emergency planning and staff training, disability awareness training, and accessibility training again. So for hotel managers to be aware of what it takes for accessible and safe evacuation of buildings. We believe these aspects are feasible in any hotel of any size or any year of construction. However, the political will to proceed with this revision of recommendations stopped in 2014. Nevertheless, there is one thing where every stakeholder agree, after that discussion, that is the collection of harmonized fire safety data. And in that area, ANEC has supported, as many of you, the call upon a European-wide accident and injury database. And especially we welcome that the Parliament will continue following up on the EU-FireStat project. Against this background, and of course we mentioned here also the fire exchange platform, fire information exchange platform having an important role for important exchange of good practices among countries. Against this background, we more recently we joined the EU Fire Safety Manifesto and increasingly cooperating with Fire Safety Alliance. So, oh sorry, I went too far.
And then we also, as ANEC, we also follow CO safety, so carbon monoxide safety, both at the standardization level. So we have activities, for instance, on barbecues, and also we follow the standards for CO detectors or CO alarms. In addition, we also have some awareness raising campaigns that we launch both or one of them during the summer and then another one during winter time. But we will come back on that later in our presentation.
Right before the summer this year, we have consulted our members at the net to learn more about fire safety awareness at the national level. And you may be interested in hearing some of the findings we have. So the focus of our consultation was over 5 questions, starting with how they perceive fire safety is addressed at the national level, how aware they are of who is responsible for fire safety, whether there are community-based fire safety programs they want to share information about, and any consumer issues they especially identified. To conclude with their views on the possible use of electrical safety checklists, such as the ones of feeds, following the coordination we had with feeds on these checklists. So we received 10 replies from our members, coming from 7 countries, so across 7 countries that we listed here in the slides: Denmark, France, Germany, Malta, Portugal, Spain, and the United Kingdom. I will guide you through the replies we received. So first of all, in the first question, there is agreement that there is a general concern that there is lack of awareness and there is lack of training on fire safety. And they also see how consumers often don't know how to react in case of an emergency, a fire emergency. As regards the regulation, there are mixed replies. Some countries feel stronger about the regulatory compliance, such as Germany, United Kingdom, also France, generally. But gaps are identified in countries like Spain and Malta, especially where they see regulations are outdated and also missing a national strategy. The issues in Spain are especially relating to older buildings and the arrays in fire, so in deaths related to fire accidents. And we'll come to this with more data to the next slide. Some aspects also related at the national level, related in France and Portugal, to the fact that there is a focus on public safety. However, in the residential sector, there is still missing some further awareness. And for example, in France, there are insurance companies that develop awareness campaigns, which are also seen as valuable. I was telling you about how in Spain there is increasing concern about fire-related fatalities. And the statistics they shared with us are from 2022, and they show how the total number was 235 for fire-related deaths, which shows a steady increase compared to the previous year. So if we look at 2019, for example, there were only 100 or let's say at least less, 165. Among these 2022 fire-related deaths, 176 were in residential buildings. And as we talk a lot, and the focus of our attention here this week is on vulnerable users, it's especially the older people. So the most affected group is those beyond 65 years old, with the highest fatality risk for those that are older than 94 years old.
Yes.
So the second question was about who they think is responsible for fire safety. They see this as a shared responsibility between governments, businesses, and individuals. But generally, there is an understanding that the government has a primary role of developing legislation and enforcing this legislation. They also require that there is financial support from the governments especially to the most vulnerable groups that are economically more at strain. And again, the authorities are seen as responsible for providing public training and increasing awareness. The third question we addressed was whether there are community-based programs existing. Generally, there is limited awareness about this, but there are some exceptions. In United Kingdom, the local fire brigades offer home checks for vulnerable residents, which is seen as a very valuable procedure. In Spain, awareness campaigns are occasionally brought forward by firefighters. And in Germany, it's the fire departments that lead community efforts. On the fourth question, we asked about consumer issues that they saw at the national level. And clearly, as we said, there is consensus that more public training and awareness are needed. The regulatory gaps are seen often relating to, for example, smoke alarms not being installed in older homes or required by the law in older homes. And this leads to a request for more training and more education. So, for example, there is also ideas of using technology, having QR codes on tickets for public events, concerts, or theater plays, or what have you. So that consumers would know the information on what is the advice in the event of a fire. And again, education. It's important to start raising awareness among our younger generations in schools to have fire prevention in school curricula. Last question we asked was about what they thought on the electrical safety checklist that FEEDS has developed and that brought also to our attention. And generally, our members were very positive about them. Some of them also intend promoting them at the national level. Possibly they require a translation also, but they see there is validity in these documents. Some still found them a bit complex for the general public, so maybe there is a need for also providing further explanation for actually applying these safety guidelines. Generally, however, they think it's a good basis for the training they require. And I leave the floor to Tanya for a very important aspect.
Thank you, Michela. So yes, indeed, we really call on or stress the importance of harmonized data collection, accident and injury data collection. And we actually call for a European consumer safety that needs solid injury data. The key is here to actually follow up on the EU Fire Stat project and also to go beyond fire safety. So not just talking about fire safety when it comes to accidents and injury data. And as a first step, we are calling on the European Commission to set up a pan-European accident and injury database. A database that also addresses, of course, fire accidents, but also with all the data collected and shared in a consistent manner, because there are a lot of data around, but they are fragmented and not easily accessible. So that's the problem, actually. It's clear that reliable and up-to-date data are of huge importance, not only to us, to ANEC, but also to a range of other stakeholders, including governments, businesses, consumer standards developers, enforcement authorities, and prevention agencies. So it's really the basis to take priorities and to take action. So there is a need to standardize and consolidate EU fire statistics, ensuring reliability and
I'm muted. Sorry, the presenter is on mute.
Yes, it seems they are muted, and it seems now we have the access to the microphone, so I guess there is something wrong with the system. Before we were totally deactivated.
Let's open again, Martin.
Can you hear us again? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's clear.
So I will continue then on the role of standards and the activities that we follow on fire safety and standardization. So first of all, we participated in Sensenelec Joint Technical Committee 4, which deals with services for fire safety and security systems. And that joint committee actually developed the standard 16763 in 2017, dealing with services for fire safety systems and security systems. And we welcomed the change that this standard brought. Because before, the problem was that there was a large difference between the requirements for fire safety and those for security systems. So that gave an adverse effect and cost implications for the consumer. Also, yes, so now we have a wrong slide on the screen.
I cannot move them.
Sorry again for the interruption.
No, it's.
So needs to go on the screen now.
Yeah, you want this one or
Backwards.
No, back.
someone?
There.
This one?
Yeah, and so how do we then
Let's click on the
this one?
this one.
So also there was a large difference in the installation and service standards for different countries in the EU. But we welcome that this standard removed much confusion and misunderstanding that existed in the EU. We only click once, yes. So talking about vulnerable consumers, one important group of vulnerable consumers are children. They are often unaware of dangers that they face, and that also goes for fire safety. One example that where we were successful was on child-resistant cigarette lighters. In the past, the situation was that many fires were attributed to children under 5 years of age that were playing with lighters that were not fitted with a child-proof device. So we as ANEC, we were instrumental in arguing for the need for a standard, and actually we helped drafting the standard that now ensures that child-resistant mechanisms on lighters are fitted to prevent fires. So we are talking here about the standard EN 13869. And following this work and our campaigning, the European Commission and the member states, they decided in 2008 to ban the sale of most types of lighters that did not comply with this standard. So as you can see on the picture, it looks like a toy car, but it was actually a lighter. So this is absolutely not allowed anymore in the EU. A second item related to child safety, also important, is the flammability of toys. There we are currently participating in the work of the CEN Committee on the Safety of Toys, which is developing an amendment to the standard for flammability of toys. And the amendment is specifically focusing on fire safety of soft-filled toys, toy disguise costumes, and also toys that are intended to be worn by a child during play. So it can be, for instance, a face mask. Here, an important factor in this work is the rate of spread of flame on the surface of the toy. And ANEC is satisfied with the development of this amendment. Then we go from child safety, let's say, to household appliances, also very important. And as Paul already mentioned in the introduction, people, they prefer to stay at home as long as they can, to live independently. So vulnerable consumers and fire safety is a very important issue when it comes to household appliances. We know all about the terrible Grenfell Tower accident in the UK, which was actually caused by a faulty electrical household appliance. And there, in standardization work, we are we welcome very much the determination of the International Electrotechnical Committee to create robust fire prevention requirements for household appliances in the standards for electrical household appliances. And actually, ANEC, we are participating in this work, but as it is an international standards committee, we participate there under the umbrella of Consumers International. Let's go then from fire safety to CO safety. As I already mentioned, we also follow that. The first example are barbecues. In the standard for barbecues, we actually argued to introduce a safety symbol that needs to be put on the barbecue to make sure that consumers are aware that they shall not use barbecues indoors to cook or to heat. And you can see on the slide the symbol, or the safety symbol that is now put on charcoal barbecues. The second standardization activity that we follow is the work on the standard for CO alarms. Our main concern on this standard is that we think the activation levels are far too high and they are above the human safe levels of exposure as they are recommended by the World Health Organization. We also think that the standards do not sufficiently protect consumers against CO poisoning in relation to instructions and warnings. Because when it comes to that, the most important for a consumer is to know what to do in case of an emergency. Just two examples here that we think should be changed in the standard. Critical information about the dwelling that needs to be evacuated in case of an emergency needs to be put on the detector, not just in the booklet with the instructions for use. Also, what we see now is that a CO detector has to have the number of the European standard. But a number of a European standard is not going to save lives. What is needed on the appliance is the most important information, and the number of the standard can easily be removed and be put in this booklet and the instruction manual. We applaud recent initiatives of the CENELEC Committee for gas detectors to look into the issue and to update the standards for CO detectors. And then, as we mentioned before, we also do awareness raising campaigns, specifically on carbon monoxide safety. We have one campaign during the summer. It's called Be Safe This Summer. It's a leaflet to help educate children and young adults, so again, vulnerable groups of consumers, about the danger of CO poisoning and to warn that the misuse of a barbecue grill can kill. This leaflet is available in 10 languages for the time being. We are translating them in further languages, and all versions in all these languages are free to download from the web address that is mentioned on the slide. And then during the winter, we have another campaign also about the use of barbecues indoors to warn consumers to stay aware that CO kills, and because actually accidents involving carbon monoxide are more frequent in colder months. Unfortunately, we heard about the news very recently of accidents here in Belgium, several incidents also with older people taking barbecues inside as a heating source or to cook. And we really support the campaign also that has been launched by the Brussels Fire Brigade and Sibelga to raise awareness to consumers, because consumers are often not aware of the consequences of carbon monoxide poisoning. So this is our winter campaign, and we will actually launch it this afternoon on the occasion of the EU Fire Safety Week.
Thank you. Now I would like to draw the conclusions on what we suggest as recommendations and actions that need to be prioritized by the institutions or member states and also local authorities. So we think the building on the fire state project, as we said, is really important to develop a pan-European injury and accident database. We find it very relevant to promote training and raise awareness of the public. And not only the public, but also professionals. We have some examples here of what are key issues we think are worth attention. There are activities in certain countries on having personal emergency evacuation plans that we see as crucial for individuals that have mobility impairments, for them to evacuate safely from a building. So this is an example of what could be done to improve the situation. And also, it's especially important to raise awareness about risks that are coming from lithium batteries operated vehicles. More and more we see fires caused by these, and it's important to make people aware of how to prevent them and how to react in case of such fires. And last but not least, it's really important to ensure the participation of civil society in any development of the strategies, the one we call upon at the European level, but also the national or local levels. It's important to have the civil society involved from the planning phase until the implementation of these strategies. We thank you very much for your attention and look forward to the discussion.
Good. Thank you very much for the presentation. And I think what it really shows is in our day-to-day life, how many touch points there are between fire safety and the products we use on a day-to-day life. The examples you give are very make it very real why awareness is so important, but also why informing if you buy a product or taking products off the market which are dangerous for people. Next in row, so thank you for the presentation. Now I'm pleased to welcome our next speaker. And I think Kun, you will introduce also yourself, so I don't want to take that away from you. I would like to hand over to Kun Martens from Oscar. Then can use space.
You can tears in it.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Dear Chair, dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the organizers, Euroalarm, of this webinar for inviting us to present the impact of domestic fires for vulnerable and elderly people. I'm Koen Maartens, I'm Managing Director of OSCARE. OSCARE is an organization for burn scar aftercare and research. So domestic fires are a significant concern for vulnerable and elderly populations across Europe. Older adults, particularly those living alone or with mobility or cognitive impairments, are disproportionately affected by fire-related injuries and fatalities. They face unique challenges that increase their risk, including slower reaction times, limited mobility, and the possibility of living in older housing, as also was told by Anek, that lacks modern fire safety features. This issue is further exacerbated by social isolation, which often leads to delayed responses to emergencies. So if we see, there's a problem here. Okay, for about 6 million people seek medical help for burns annually. Yearly, there are about 180,000 deaths worldwide following burns. And the most incidents are in low or middle-income countries, as we can see the next slide. Europe has about 5,000 burn deaths annually. Most of the incidents happen in the South Asian countries, and low and middle income countries have 7 times higher risk of deaths.
Take your time if you want to fix your problem.
Yes, because there's a problem here in my computer. No. It's okay. I follow on the slide here. Besides the risk of dying due to burns, there are, of course, all other things like non-fatal burns, like prolonged hospitalization, disfigurement, disability. There are often stigma or rejection, and this all comes out of a report of the WHO from PAC. Males are more prone to have burns than females, depending on the region, and of course, children and elderly are at a higher risk, with those living in the lowest socio-economic class are more at risk. So there are other risk factors like dangerous occupations, increased exposure to fire, poverty, overcrowding places, inadequate safety measures, young girls in household roles, because cooking is a big risk factor. There are medical conditions like epilepsy or cognitive disabilities who are a big risk factor. Of course, substance abuse like alcohol, smoking, also easy access to chemicals used for assault, like we see emerging in our countries, but for instance, which has a high incidence in the UK, and also the use of kerosene as a fuel source for non-electrical domestic appliances in the southern Asian countries. So besides that, elderly people are especially vulnerable because of some physical limitations. There may be a reduced mobility and dexterity, making it difficult to escape in case of burn. We saw that last Friday, I think there was another big fire in Zaragoza in Spain, in an elderly home care where 10 people died, and because of they couldn't escape in time. Most of them because of a smoke inhalation. So not of the fire itself, because of reduced escape time. Also, cognitive impairments like dementia or memory loss impair the ability to react or use fire safety equipment effectively. Some health issues like smoke inhalation, and also the living condition, as I already mentioned before. The European Fire Safety Alliance conducted a report in 2008, gathering information of, at that time, I think 9 different countries throughout Europe, and they looked into some fire-related fatalities. For instance, in the UK, the older 65 plus represented about 40% of the fire fatalities at home. In France, people aged 75 and more are 50% and more likely to die in a fire than younger people. And in European, EU-wide, they are 3 times more likely to die in a fire than other age groups. Here you can see the division or the distribution of the fatalities per capita. And I'll show you an example in this slide. Estonia had the highest number of fatal numbers in Europe. In 2006, there were 12 per 100,000 inhabitants, and they decided to change that, to conduct a vision that would decrease the numbers towards the other Nordic countries. As you can see, they managed to diminish towards the same numbers of their of the countries in the northern part of Europe, and they did it because they changed regulation. They did home checks, house checks, installed smoke detector. They distributed it for free. They had community-based programs, school programs, awareness campaigns, etc. And so they managed to diminish their numbers. So what are the common causes of fires in the elderly population? I already mentioned cooking fires. UK statistics show that cooking causes about 47% of household fires because of faulty cooking equipment, unattended stoves, or carelessness. Heating equipment, space heaters and electrical appliances are common triggers. And of course, smoking, careless smoking, is a leading cause of fire in homes of elderly people. And for instance, in France, there has been a rise of smoking-related fires, particularly in households where the residents had dementia. So they forgot or they fell asleep in combination with alcohol consumption. Besides that, there's a huge impact of burns on health and emotional behavior, physical injuries, psychological trauma, and financial burden are of a huge impact. Burns, smoke inhalation, and fractures from falls during fire evacuation, for instance. In a report of the UK fire services, it showed that elderly people were more likely to sustain serious injuries, including fractures and severe burns. There might be post-traumatic stress disorder following the fire, and anxiety, but also because of the loss of home, personal belongings, etc. And of course, there's also a huge financial burden due to high medical expenses, and also the potential loss of income due to the disability. What are the barriers to fire safety for elderly or vulnerable people? There might be a lack of awareness. Many elderly people are unaware of fire hazards or safety protocols. In a survey, an Italian survey, it showed that 38% of elderly people had never received fire safety education before. So that's a huge problem, of course. They might be isolated, living alone, less likely to have immediate assistance during an emergency, or they don't have the financial resources to prevent the installation of smoke alarms or, for instance, fire extinguishers. So what can we do ourselves to prevent fires? Is, of course, the first line of prevention is installing smoke detectors, smoke alarms, perhaps having fire extinguishers, but only for those who can really use it, handle it. I would suggest. In a study in Sweden revealed that the distribution of smoke alarms, and also has been seen in the UK, for instance, to elderly citizens that could reduce the fire fatalities. Of course, fire safety education. It was already mentioned before, community programs, outreach initiatives targeting the vulnerable population, elderly, but also children, of course. Fire safety awareness campaigns that might be effective or might be successful in educating older citizens about fire risk, but only when it targets the change of behavior. And I will come to that a little later. Of course, also social support networks. Elderly people need to be checked up upon by family or caregivers or community organizations to ensure they are safe. They are also aware of their risk behavior that they are conducting. And of course, the home inspections might be very successful. And it was also already mentioned that training or exercising escape routes might be useful in case of fire. So the Safer Homes programs of the UK were already mentioned. They proved to be successful in reducing their fatalities by 15%. They have a very enduring National Burn Awareness Day week campaign organized by the British Burns Association, and also local fire brigades conduct fire safety workshops in care homes and community centers. So I already mentioned that that we should need to change behavior, because increasing awareness is not enough. It has been shown that a lot of campaigns are conducted the last, let's say, 20-25 years, and only focusing on creating awareness. But knowing what to do is not enough to actually changing your behavior and actually decreasing the risks. An important theoretical model to change behavior is the theory of planned behavior. And the ultimate change of behavior is influenced by the intention. The intentional, an individual has to change that behavior. And that intention is mostly influenced by the attitude toward the behavior, so the beliefs and the motivation to change behavior, the subjective norm, and also the perceived behavioral control. And we should use this kind of models to actually conduct interventional programs that can really help people to change their behavior. An example of a beautiful study that was conducted by Margot Karemaker from the Dutch Institute for Public Safety. She did her PhD, and she has a beautiful study, Never Too Old to Learn, on the behavioral influence among the elderly. You can look it up. You can find her dissertation online. So I thank also Margot for handing over some information on her PhD. So it has been shown that since we have an increasing aging population, also in the Netherlands, where this study has been done, that they are at great risk of becoming a victim in domestic fires. And her objective of this study was to develop an intervention to change that behavior of elderly to improve their fire-safe behavior. So she did a needs assessment with more than 4,000 participants, determined the behavioral factors that influence fire safety among the elderly. So it revealed that attitude, self-efficacy, and social norms are very important to influence the intentional and finally the change of behavior. And these three parameters were then put into the development of a fire safety at home program, which she has tested. And these are some pictures of the intervention, and she focused on only 4 behaviors, 4 topics in the intervention program, which was the charging of electrical devices, as you can see in the left image on top, like for instance the iPod or the iPad or tablets or the phone, connecting wires, cooking behavior. And so she tested the intervention of this program and compared it to the traditional prevention program that is usually given by, let's say, fire brigades or organization on fire safety. And what it shown was that on focusing only on those 4 behaviors, which were then afterwards discussed in the group, and that's the right image on top, that it was more effective to focus only on that behavior, the 4 behaviors. So they were more effective, significant effective. Only the cooking was as effective if they would have done it in group or compared with the traditional. So the lessons learned from this study is that you should focus on influencing the most important predictors of behavior, meaning the attitude, the self-efficacy, so the belief you have that you can change something yourself, and the social norms. Focus on the active learning, and the more specific you target your behaviors and predictors in interventions, the more effective these will be. So to effectively change behavior, a different focus in fire safety programs is required. And there should be a shift from raising awareness, which is just not enough, to behavioral change. Behavioral change is a very complex, we all know that, and a long-term process. But if focusing on the right determinants, we can actually achieve this. So sharing knowledge is not just enough. We need to influence that behavior, focus on quality and not on the quantity of the information you want to transfer. So before starting an interventional program, you should know which groups you want to target. If it's children or elderly or vulnerable people, you can't just target everyone in one interventional program. Here are some of the campaigns of the last couple of years, which focused mainly on increasing awareness. And as I said, we just need to go a step further than this. It's important to reach a broad public, broad population that we should target to really change that behavior. So to conclude, some take-home messages. I'm quite convinced that at least 50% of the burn accidents are preventable. We should be convinced of that. Severe burn injuries that require hospitalization still occur often and have a high impact on psychological, physical, also health issues, but also on morbidity and mortality. We should definitely focus on vulnerable group, especially the elderly, as they are increasing, and we have an aging population. But on the other hand, the national and international registration of data of populations with burn injuries should also be promoted because there's a lack of good qualitative data that compare facts and figures between countries or regions. There's also a lack of effective interventional prevention programs, a lack of coordination, and we are quite convinced that fire prevention does matter. So a combination of proactive measures such as fire safety education, social outreach, home safety modifications, but also change in regulation can help to reduce the risks through community initiatives, governmental programs, family support. We can ensure a safer living environment for the elderly across Europe. So I want to conclude with this quote who sums it all up. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, but involve me and I will learn, from Benjamin Franklin. Thank you very much. And I want to draw your attention on the European Smoke Alarm Day, which is at the end of this week here on Friday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Koen, for this insightful presentation. It for sure highlights that there is a lot of work still to do. And I think what's nice to see, it makes it very complete if you look at the presentation from Annek, where we looked at much more on the preventive side. That if you look at the next step and you identify the people who have the highest probability to be impacted, and you can combine that, then I think that we can make a difference. But we'll come back to that after the last presentation. But the behavior change, I think, together with awareness, are two very interesting topics to have a look at and see how you can do that. And before the meeting, I talked with a few people. I made the comparison with the car industry. When I got my driver's license, you had no seatbelts. The children were just sitting in the back of the car without seatbelts. They were just still playing their game. There's a behavior change. If you know, smoking is another one which in the car, which was done a lot. But there is a whole behavior change. If you now go in a car, the first thing you do is you put on your seatbelt, and if the person next to you doesn't, it's not for a penalty. It's out of your behavior. You say, "Oh, don't forget to put on your seatbelt." Good. Thanks, Koen, for that. Last but not least, we are going to listen to a presentation from Torsten Teigert, who will look more at, I don't want to call it solutions because that's not fair. I often say when I talk about fire safety and about what we do as Euroalarm, we are the last part of the chain. Because if everything before has done in the right way, still something can go wrong, then at least you want to ensure that people can still have the time to leave a building. And technology is very helpful in that. And Torsten is going to highlight a few areas which can help us to increase fire safety for sure for the vulnerable and elderly people. So Torsten, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, for this introduction. My name is Torsten Teigert. I'm here my role as chair of the task group Domestic Life Safety in Euroalarm. Yeah, how to start? People spend up to 90% of their days indoors and most of that time at home. And I'm pretty sure now that you've just heard the term home, didn't you immediately have a very, say, special good feeling? Just thinking about your home. Thought that. That's fully okay. Everyone has it because everyone associates something with the term home. And whenever I ask people what it is, I hear particularly often, I feel very comfortable at home and I feel safe there. And I think this is a very important thing. You want to feel safe in your home. While comfort is based on very individual requirements, safety at home can be measured somewhat more objectively. Also, I talk a lot to people and ask them what is it? What makes you feel safe in your home? And most of them answered, first of all, my home should be as safe as possible from fire. Second point is often it should be secure against unauthorized access or intrusion or robbery. Then, of course, the electrical installations and like gas and water, electricity, and so on, they should be installed and maintained correctly, which is unfortunately not in all countries in Europe the case today. And finally, the internet access and thus all these fancy smart home application, IoT applications, should be secure against cyber attacks. And I'm also, again, pretty much sure that most of you will say yes to this list of this list of things that makes your home safe. But let's think a few years ahead. Oops, sorry, to step back. So what will it be like when you are not as young as you are today, if you are part of the elderly or harmed with any kind of physical or mental handicap? The question is, will comfort then still means the same to you as it does today, or will you have to change some of your priorities? Of course, I hope that each of you, that for each of you, that your priorities can be the same as they are today. But let us be honest with ourselves and acknowledge that life can be more difficult in old age, especially when you live alone. And this also includes that it becomes more difficult to deal with dangerous situations, to react appropriately to a dangerous situation as you get older. And there should be no doubt that the risk of being involved in an incident increases with age or any kind of health restrictions. So this is a point where we have to look on, and yeah, facing the fact currently is that we have known since years that there is neither enough staff nor enough money for a sufficient number of retirement homes or nursing homes in Europe, in any country of Europe. And the logical consequence is currently that the aging generation and people with disabilities must live independently in their homes for as long as possible. Yeah, and at the end, as there is not enough stuff for caring, they need to be assisted by technology. Because the point is, it is a fact. Looking at some studies and presentations on several websites, you will see that we have in Europe a continuously aging societies on the one hand, and at the same time, the number of people in working age decrease. And this is a problem we need to solve, and obviously this can only be done with technology. And if we raise this question, the first question is, can technology today already provide assistance? And if so, can technology also reduce the risk of an incident occurring and, in an emergency, help people to deal with that dangerous situation? The answer to this question is yes, because we have today driver assisting technology is quite normal in cars we use currently, in the, say, more modern cars. So we have things like rain and light sensors. We have active lane assistance, traffic sign recognition, parking assistance, air quality sensors, tire pressure sensors, dynamic navigation. All these things is normal to us if we sit in our cars. And the question is, of course, why should comparable assistance not be possible for people in buildings? That does not make any sense to me. And again, here the good news is it is available already. We have solutions like domestic hazard warning systems. We have active assisted living systems that act at a next level to social alarm systems, which are already deployed in many European countries, and enabling mostly elderly people to actively call an operator in an alarm receiving center to request help in any situation. But these social alarm systems are to be activated actively by pressing an emergency button. And we need to look for solutions that can be act also automatically, triggered by, in example, events. Well, let's have a short look at the domestic hazard warning systems. These, together with the active assisted living systems and the social alarm systems, these three systems can build on each other, and if combined, they're perfect to create comprehensive safety, security, and comfort at the same time to you. A little bit more details on the hazard warning systems. They are nothing more than the meaningful combination of four well-known and well-established system types that, of course, on the one hand, remain autonomously, but work, on the other hand, very closely together. And it's interconnected smoke alarms, it is intrusion and hold-up alarm systems, it is this already mentioned social alarm systems, and the building services like electricity, gas, water, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, whatever you have in your home. And even your smart home system, which may be today an important part of your idea of comfort, that it can become part of this hazard warning system and thus contribute at the end to a safe environment in your home. Well, active assisted living systems. Active assisted living is a term which is not very well known at the moment, but it's growing and growing all the time. So let me give you a short introduction of that. It can be described as an upgrade to the foundation that you may have laid in your younger years with a smart home system or any kind of home automation system. For some, it is simply a system that helps you with the daily things of everything of your normal life, such as reminding you to take your medicine because it knows that you haven't yet opened the medicine cabinet today. For others, it may be a service robot that brings food, vacuums the home, or entertains you on request. Also, this is maybe a part of active assisted living systems. And for still others, it's a surveillance system that can warn you of medical emergency and significantly earlier than you would recognize. At the end, there are no exact and always identical requirements for an AAL system, because the reason is that it needs to be planned and set up with components and services that are precisely tailored to the current needs of the user. And because only if it's perfectly tailored, it can really compensate for the limitations the person has at that moment and at that part of his life. This may change over the years, and so the AAL system needs to be updated, of course, regularly. So what can it do? It can, on the one hand, as an idea, it can ask you via your smartwatch whether you are really okay if the heart rate sensor has detected an example, unusually high or low heart rate. And if you do not respond, the system will act, as I said, automatically by, on the one hand, calling for help, and on the other hand, also transmitting your current location in addition with your actual heart rate values or something else to the helpers, which is, of course, prior to or has to be set up individually with an appropriate emergency call center or alarm receiving center. Another example, maybe it makes a bit clearer what an AAL system can do. It is, a little bit of the daily things of life. Let's imagine a person regularly comes to help you with your housework. When you are older, well, you are not that fit anymore, and housework can be tough. So this person should be allowed to enter your home because for you it's difficult, an example, to get up and open the door. This is quite clear. On the other hand, the person, of course, should be able, but not every day and not around the clock, because you, of course, also want privacy. And again, your AAL system can solve this problem because it can be programmed to send out a QR code to the person that helps you with your housework. Let's say a few minutes prior to the scheduled arrival time. The person could use this QR code to authenticate themselves on a camera-based peephole. The system would then recognize, okay, this is the one we want to have here now, and can open the smart door lock and informs you via your smart speaker who's currently coming. This can be a solution. Well, that's nice, that's good, but can an AAL system also prevent users from getting into dangerous situations? And there's something Con mentioned in his presentation prior to my. It is, let's imagine that an elderly occupant is sometimes a little bit confused. Perhaps the onset of dementia, also very unfortunately, very, very often with elderly people. And of course, if this onset is there, you have to react quite quickly to certain situations. And in this case, as an example, you may have a motion detector in the hallway that normally switches on as soon as you recognize, as it recognizes a movement, it switches on the light. And now, just intelligently combine these some existing sensors. If this motion detector now detects the presence of the resident in the middle of the night, and next it notices that the entry door is opened instead of, an example, the bathroom door. This could be an alarm sign and could then result in a call for help or an information to carers or relevance or something like that, just to prevent the occupant from getting lost. Because this is a very, very often happening scenario with people suffering from dementia. Also, an idea that how people can get help by assistance. Finally, as you know, I'm here in my role with your alarm. Of course, let's talk about dangerous situations. If a fire breaks out in your dwelling, in the best case, your smoke alarms will trigger an audible alarm, and you have been warned now and should actually leave your home. But again, if you are only able to save yourself to a very limited extent, due to whatever, is it illness, is it disability, or is it just because you are one of the elderly? You need some help from outside. But again, of course, normally the front door is locked because of course everyone wants privacy, and the helpers cannot get in. Fire brigades are to be called. They break out up the door and so on. This could be easier when being assisted by an AAL system. We can use the same QR code solution as we had with the household assistant 2 slides ago, but it is now not triggered by time, but automatically through the smoke alarms. The smoke alarms are also part of it, connected to everything, and the smoke alarms can now activate such an alarm system, and at the same time, it switches on all the light in your home to have lights in the escape routes. It switches off all the ventilation or air conditioning, because if you have a fire in your house, you want everything but not additional oxygen. It will at the same time inform you in a reassuring voice that help is already on the way. And thanks to the QR code, all the helpers, whoever is in the list of the possible recipients, can enter the home and support you in rescuing yourself. This could be a solution. Yeah. Finally, many forms of assistance. This is only some examples. You can imagine whatever you want. I'm pretty sure it is possible to do it already today. And thus, many forms of assistance can be provided by technology today, either locally or remotely, for the elderly, disabled, or sick people to continue living independently, comfortable, and safe in their familiar surroundings. And be sure the number of the numbers are continually growing, both in terms of the number of people who need assistance as well as the number of possible technical solutions. And yeah, and finally, exactly this is what I wanted to show in this presentation, that it is really possible today. It is not in the far future. It is possible today to make a home at the same time safe, comfortable, and assistive for you. And the more restricted you are, the less you are able to deal with certain dangerous or hazardous situations. Thus, the safety aspect should play a central role in your thoughts about an assistive home, or if you are dealing on a professional base with assisting systems or assisted living systems. Also then, if you act as a planner, you should make sure that all the safety and security needs are adequately addressed. And to ensure this, please consult, in addition to all the other experts you need to set up such a home, also please contact safety and security experts to contribute to this overall project, because they will make sure that everything comes together in an overall concept to ensure that you are reliably assisted and protected at the same time in your home. Maybe with domestic hazard warning systems, maybe with some single solutions interconnected to your AAL system. This is, what I wanted to say to you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thorsten, for your presentation, and thank you basically to all the speakers for insightful presentations. And something you can take away from this is that there's probably not one solution for fire safety. We talked about awareness. You talk about the consequences. You talk about part of the solutions. So fire safety really needs a holistic approach. It needs approach to be seen from all sides. If you look at something which always challenges me, and I'm sure there's no answer on that, because if I would have the answer, I would not be sitting here. But I would like to ask the panelists if they can respond to that. And if you have any questions, by the way, please feel free to put them in the Q&A from Teams. That's possible also. It looks in one or another way that people always need a disaster before they basically want to do something. And when I worked in the US for a few years, you saw when there was a big incident in a big town with CO poisoning or with a fire, that suddenly over the next coming 4, 5, 6 weeks, there was a shortage of fire sensors and smoke sensors and CO sensors, and then after 3 or 4 weeks, everything dies off. And then I ask regularly people when I go and visit them and I see the smoke sensors, then I ask, when did you for the last time test them? And then very often you get the answer, last time I did it when I put new wallpaper on, which was 5 years ago, which means it's not somewhere in the mind of people to that even when they have the awareness, because if you ask somebody about fire safety or fire risk, they will all come back and tell you that they all are all aware of it, but they do not take the consequences. So is there anybody who wants to has any remarks on why it's that way, that we always need a disaster before people are starting action? Christoph, you're also free to anybody who wants to has any response to that?
Maybe we were saying earlier, before we started the meeting, we were saying it's always the idea that it happens to somebody else. It's not my problem because, yeah, it happens, but it doesn't happen to me. We see the same happening with the climate-related tragedies these days. Again, it's a matter of awareness. We think it's also a matter of statistics, because if you think it doesn't happen to you, we think it's maybe something very rare, but it's not as rare. So the moment we have more data, we can also increase this understanding among the public. if you know, it does happen, I don't know, every year it did happen, 235 people that died because of a fire. Look around you, how likely is it that it happens to you or your family? So that may be a starting point, not to wait for this to happen. And then possibly it relates to the conversation that Con was having on changing behavior, really. What happens once you know that you're at risk?
Yeah. I think the change on behavior is a very interesting one, because if you're aware of something does not mean that you change your behavior. Do we believe that if it's enforced by law, that would make a difference on the acceptance from fire safety? And I give you an example. In the Nordics, stove guards are by law pre-described in multi-story buildings, and now in the green economy they build wooden buildings now also, and the stove guard is nothing else that if something goes wrong on your cooking plate, that it switches off physically the stove. So that but it had a very low acceptance until it was mandated by law. And then suddenly you cannot go around it anymore, and then people have to use it. Is that a direction we believe as stakeholders in the fire safety, that we should push the policymakers to do that? Or do we believe that is, as we say in Dutch, the horse behind the wagon? Because if you enforce something, it does not always mean that people will also use it. Any response on that?
I think it's can be seen in various countries.
Do you mind to come a little closer?
You have to sit next to me, so that's.
I think if we can see it when we look in different countries where smoke alarm application has been established in the past years. Exactly what you mentioned is a fire. Yes, a fire can happen in a home, but not in my home. It happens anywhere else, not in my home. And of course, this idea is wrong. So the point is, what I want to come to is we have to separate. If we talk about change of behavior, being aware of topics, we directly address homeowners, people who live in their own home. If we look at the numerous cases where people live in rented homes, flats, apartments, multiple dwelling buildings, we have to address the landlords. And the landlords, they are aware, but they don't care. That's the point. So the landlords need definitely an obligation. And this leads us directly to a legislation.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, maybe from the annex side, just to say that, of course, legislation is very important. And we have seen some examples in the past of voluntary agreements, and then it showed that it didn't really work. So it's important, but there also needs to be the political will, of course, to make the legislation. And then when there is a legislation, it needs to be enforced, as I already mentioned during my presentation. I mean, you can have the best laws in the world, but if it's not enforced, then, of course, it's not worth a lot. It all goes together, let's say.
It basically confirms, if it's not a holistic approach, that it will not work. Christoph, it was mentioned already a few times. We have, of course, the activities around the Parliament for the fire statistics. Are there any other areas from your side where you believe policymakers should take more action going forward? Or should we just focus on maybe one project and first try to make that happen before we try to add more?
Of course, there are much more for the decision makers or the policy makers to do to improve, generally speaking, safety, or in this particular case, fire safety. And that's why, because we heard about many different, let's say, activities, actions, or steps, measures which can improve fire safety. And even now, at the EU level, many initiatives are run, but the problem is that sometimes they don't see each other. And that's why we are calling for a coordination role, that somebody, for example, in the European Commission, would take coordination role and let's say combine those all these activities together to receive better results.
Okay, thank you. Martin, do we have any questions in the Q&A?
There was one. No more remarks than questions. Yeah, no, with more remarks than.
Yeah, sorry, Kun, go ahead.
Yes, well, I think it has already been said, but I think it's a combination. Fire safety should be a combination of gathering data, good data, because if we know the locations where people are most vulnerable, we can really map it into cities in low socioeconomic areas. So data is very important. I think we should invest more money in that. Of course, adapt regulation and enforcement is key. I think we should have interventional programs that are targeting to change behavior, but only trusting that, for instance, fire safety engineering is only possible if the technical measures are behavioral independent. So if we should be very sure that the technical solutions that they work at all times, and before really relying on what it's meant to be for the market. I think there are most accidents, I think, fall into that part of the population that doesn't have the big resources to put smart safety devices in their homes. So I think house or home checks, regulation, the landlord as well measured. So the rental houses of the poorer people in the community. That's where the problems are. That's where the risks are. And I don't think that today we have enough in hand to really enforce or look that that these risks are diminishing, decreased. So I think it's important to have this combination of different measures, the data, regulation, also collaboration between institutions, public, private institutions, organizations, the industry. We should work together and not only talking about it, but also actually doing something together. I mean, and then I think in envisioning a goal together, a common goal together to increase fire fatalities that we can work on together, we can achieve better results than we do for now.
Okay, thank you. In line with that, we have a common goal. We always look at Europe, but if you then look at fire safety, there is a lot of differences between countries. I think if you go on holiday yourself, it's sometimes surprising to see if you enter a hotel and you enter a hotel in one country versus another country, or a shopping center in one country versus another country, how different the measures are. With bed and breakfast, I think it's even worse. I've slept in somewhere there are smoke sensors, but the previous occupants move the battery because they don't like the flashing light at night. So they take the battery out and put the smoke sensor back, things like that. And then you go to another country and there's a full fire system, which how important do you believe is that we look on European level and try to achieve something, or maybe reverse it because there's a lot of local regulation and local rules. Maybe focus on the member states and try to achieve something there that could be more successful than trying to do that through Europe, because fire safety is also in a gray area if you look to the European treaties. Any?
So maybe I will comment on that. Yes, it's true that the fire safety in general is in principle is the responsibility of member states. And you mentioned about different situations in different countries, but at the same time, we face mostly the same challenges, the same problems in all EU countries. And fire safety, in principle, is regulated by the fire codes in member states, but many fire safety aspects are not regulated by fire codes. Like, for example, fire safety awareness, like like data, like researches and things like that. And what means that, of course, we can't say that at the European Union, we should solve the problem in each individual country. But once again, we can coordinate many activities at the EU level, or we can propose some strategies which then can be implemented at the level of the individual member state.
Okay, I think that's any yeah, sorry.
Yes, and again, the data collection is the basis for all the actions and all the initiatives. Sure. And as we mentioned, there are data. That's not the problem. There are a lot of data, but they are so fragmented, and sometimes you cannot access the data. So you really face the problem, and therefore it's important that, well, it has been said so many times already, coordination is key. So it's important for the European Commission to set up this pan-European database. Unfortunately, well, only last month there was the International Product Safety Week, where it was also highlighted that this is really a priority, data collection, coordinated data collection. But the political will, again, is not there. The European Commission answered that they have done several feasibility studies. And the cost is a problem, yes, of course. But when there have been fires and when you have economic loss and you cannot go to work, it's also costing a lot of money. And the second argument from the European Commission was the privacy of the data. But when we are talking about fire safety data, it's not important what the first name of the person was or his telephone number. We want to know other things, not these privacy issues. So we really take every opportunity, and we hope that you all will do the same, to please ask the European Commission to set up this database, because that's the basis for all the next actions.
Do I understand that last month it's parked now, or is it still continuing the project from the European Commission for data collection?
No, so actually, last month in October, there was the International Product Safety Week. Okay. Like we have the European Fire Safety Week now. It was the International Product Safety Week, also with a lot of events and everything. And there, Annek was also in one of the panels, and we argued again to set up this database. But that was the reply that we got from the Commission. We have done feasibility studies. The cost is too high, and there are privacy issues with the GDPR. Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Shane, I see you asked a question in the chat, but maybe it's easier that you ask the question yourself in the room. Yeah, please, if you want to.
Yeah, just the point that the needs of the elderly evolve over time as people become more infirm or just generally lose mobility. I suppose their needs will change. Therefore, to ensure I suppose, appropriate safety, appropriate needs assessment that will involve carers and other people caring for the elderly should be taught how to assess the fire risk or the general risk to somebody's health in their home. Whether they're a smoker or not, whether they're inclined to leave piles of paper lying around the house, things like that.
Okay.
Does the panel agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yes.
But who should do that, Shane? Who should do that needs assessment?
Well, the training, I think, could be carried out by the fire services. Eventually, I think you would require we might need to create a risk assessment document and a template that people, could be just a tick checklist.
I would suggest that should be done by the home fire safety visits, which have been so successful in some countries.
Yeah.
Firefighters could go into the house and do an assessment of the living conditions of vulnerable people, and then maybe come back and even contact community nurses or health nurses that could go and assist with some medical issues, and then come back and install smoke alarms or give them demonstrations as to how they should change their behavior with dealing with cooking or something like that.
Yeah.
In their own homes.
Yeah. And maybe the fact that the carers are the ones who are most often in contact. They're the ones who should be trained. And that way they will identify issues as they arise, because obviously the fire services
can't do everything.
No, they can't.
But it means collaboration with lots of agencies together to produce the
holistic approach
that you were talking about, Paul.
Yes, I think Kun, I always forget which country it is in the Baltics. Estonia, where the checkups from fire sensors have been reversed to the chimney wipers, because they are by law coming every 2 years. They don't install on things like that, but what they do is when they do a visit, they have to mention on the report that they are still present, that they are still working, and that seemed already to be a stimulus for people to be more proactive than just waiting until the next.
I'm pretty sure there is a bunch of possible solutions for this. I'm pretty sure it should depend on the let's say cultural as well as traditional situation in each country, because it is so different from country to country. Especially in some countries, there are established regulations, not about just installing, but also keeping or making sure that in example, smoke alarms are active and can detect something. In some cases, it has been handed over legally to the owner of a property. In other countries, it is a very good solution, of course, Finian, in the UK and Ireland, the home visits of fire services, looking at that. I think there are different possible solutions, and I think it would be a good idea if there is a general requirement, say to the EU member states to establish something like that, and then leave it on them to do it in their way, how it fits best to already existing regulations and codes in the country. And we are trying on the other hand for looking at the standardization organizations. They are also trying to do their best to contribute to this by giving advices on the one hand, publishing specifications, not standards but specifications, how this can be implemented and what can be done in each country.
I would suggest that the Commission should coordinate guidance, best shared practice in terms of dealing with, other than suggesting that regulations must be enacted, similar to what they're doing for the guidance for covered car parks and so on. That the EU could play a coordinating role in offering guidance among member states to help vulnerable people.
Yep. Yeah. I think that with the Commission, it's always it was already mentioned the feedback you got. It's a matter of time and priority, and we when in the last conversations we already got a few times the remark that they are waiting on the new commissioners to be installed, and then the new priorities will be set. So at this moment, it's very difficult to get the attention from them. And even when they agree with something you would like to achieve, it's also for them if they get the priority from their management to do that. I see no further questions in the chat. So
Now this is the Q&A. Switch to the chat. There are two more.
I don't see them.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry.
So just to report a comment, we also noted this in our presentation, but our fire safety expert is also online, and in the chat he was reminding about personal emergency evacuation plans that were produced in the United Kingdom following the Grenfell Tower fire report, as you may know. And we were wondering if other countries in Europe or you have any views on the validity of these initiatives, because it seems very valuable, especially for those with reduced mobility.
Sorry, anybody wants to react on that?
Because I thought, because in relation to what you were saying, Shane, whether you have any views on personal evacuation plans.
In my opinion, every home should have its, the family should have their own evacuation plan. I remember when my kids were younger, we used to have them all in bed at a certain time, and one of them would get to press the remote control, which would activate the smoke alarms, and we would all head for one particular room, hop out the window, helping each other to get out, get up as far as the top of the garden, and then somebody would have to bring the fire brigade. That was a game for the kids, and it increased their awareness. Made them aware of what to do in the event of the alarm going off. Nowadays, they're teenagers and older, and when the alarm goes off, it's me trying to wake them up, get them out of bed.
But we think it relates really to home checks. As a colleague said, it's really important. We got it also from the survey from our members that the good practices like those should be extended at European level.
Yeah, we shared the good practices last year about an evacuation room project, which was in the Netherlands. They built a container evacuation game for students. They built a small student room inside there. And then while they're inside having a party, it's a fake party, of course, but all kind of incidents start to happen, and then they have to react on that. And it's to make them aware of, because student homes is also one of the areas where there is, they are not old yet, but they are maybe aware, but very often they don't take all the rules into account, which should be done. I think in general, training and education is a good one. I think Finland has a whole program. If you already from small children up to adult. Also, if you look at some suppliers from smoke sensors and life safety sensors, if you go to the websites, they have whole programs with children games and toys and even songs and things like that, but it's always very difficult to measure. It looks very nice if you look at it, but then the question, of course, is how many people are physically using that and making use of the information which is available. And like Shane said, talk with their surrounding their children about fire safety, about an escape plan, or things like that.
I think school-based training programs can help a lot, because via children you can reach parents, and I think the younger you start with it, the more effective it can be in the end. There was this Be Fire Safe at School program. Finian, perhaps you can explain a little. It was a European program in 8 different countries.
Yeah, in 8 different countries, where we created modules for fire safety in the home, fire safety at school, for responding to emergencies, how to call the emergency services, It also gave them some indication of the careers in the fire service and the work that firefighters do. It also dealt with fire safety in the environment, wildfires, dealing with barbecues, and it was designed for post-primary students. It has been rolled out in a number of countries, but I think it could be more extensively.
Yep. For good, for sure. Yeah, we talked with a number of people about the one-stop shops, which are under the building directive, which are related in a lot of governments. You have now an energy coach. You can call them in for free. They tell you what best to do with isolation and what the best investment is. And we offered the idea a few times to add to that also fire safety, because they come in your home, they have a kind of technical background and knowledge, at least to advise them. But we got I don't want to call it pushback, but a lot of questions, because they start about they have to be trained, they have to be this, they have to be that, and then a small project becomes a bigger project. But that could be a very easy way of access. That would also, or could also, help the older homes, because people who change their home now are basically living in homes which are 30, 40, 50 years old. They offer free. They are there. They don't cost anything. So why don't use them? But that's not always as obvious as it maybe looks from the outside. That good. We're a little earlier than expected, but that's not a problem. I want to thank everybody for.
There's one more question in the question and answer, Paul. Should there be an EU standard on the sound from a smoke alarm?
On
the sound.
Sound.
Oh, I thought that was regulated, but I look at Benoit.
But yeah, the smoke alarm should have an 85 decibel at 3 meters sound level.
Yes.
Okay.
So it is regulated.
It is regulated that there has to be acoustic signal. It is regulated the sound level of this acoustic level of this acoustic signal, but it is not regulated the beep tone. So there is in many European countries, there are very clear rules and regulations on an evacuation signal for alarm systems and fire detection systems. And the problem is that if the smoke alarms are now harmonized using a regulation to have a unique tone, and all have to be the same, have to use the same tone. I don't think that this is really possible to regulate. It would be nice to have, but I'm pretty sure this can only happen if prior to this there is a general European evacuation signal that is used by any type of system or device that officially should initiate or can initiate an evacuation. I'm not convinced that this will happen during my lifetime.
It's up to the technical committee who is responsible for that to deal with that. I think we going forward we will have a number of challenges together, and I hope we can also look at them together, as well as industry, as consumer organizations, as aftercare, but also as policymakers, locally or European. If you look at the challenges also on fire safety related with the Green Deal, the use of energy storage, we hear from several countries the number of incidents with lithium-ion batteries in the residential environment. Yeah. If you take that together with the aging population, it was mentioned there will not be enough care homes to put us all in a pre-built safe location. I think we will have a lot of opportunities going forward. So I would really encourage ourselves, including us, to continue the work we are doing and also the work we do in the European Fire Safety Week to bring the stakeholders together and make, in a few days' time, a very strong message to the outside world. I want to thank all the presenters for being here. I want to thank also the people online and the people in the room here.